of 4404. Jennifer 4405, 05,
All right, welcome back, crime fighters. It's time for another edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted, the program where you get to help make Calhoun County a better and safer place by helping us lock up the bad guys. I'm Chris Wright, along with our newly sworn-in Sheriff of Calhoun County, Matthew Wade. Good to see you, Sheriff.
Good. It's good to be on the show. It's good to start a new term of office, and excited about the things we'll do and the people we'll help. So.
You know, I walked in yesterday to the Oxford Civic Center and saw a big old crowd of deputies there, including some reserve deputies, and a lot of folks there also from other places to witness the event. And I really liked how you handled that. And you know, there's been in our society a well-publicized backlash against law enforcement. There's a lot of people that are saying negative things about law enforcement and throwing stones literally and figuratively at law enforcement. And you brought it back to, yeah, there are a few of those out there, but let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the vast majority of the people, like our viewers to this show, that are 100% behind our law enforcement officers.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in mainstream media or social media where sometimes the loudest people are not necessarily the majority. And some of the things that the people are complaining about is about a small instant of people, not the majority of law enforcement. So it's easy to focus on the negative, and we're trying to be positive and focus on the positive. And the positive is how many people can we help? How many people out there support and love us? Those are the people we need to focus our energy on to make sure that we focus on that versus the negative. And be positive, find ways to help, find ways to make our image to be one that's better as well. You know, I have a strong desire for people to understand that law enforcement is not only about arresting people, it's about helping people. It's about being there, being approachable, finding ways to serve. So, you know, that's something I tell our staff all the time, find some way to serve, find someone to serve. So our goal is to not focus on the negative and focus on the positive.
And of course, with that doesn't mean you ignore any real criticism. If there's a problem, you're going to look at it, figure it out, address it.
Absolutely. If there's a problem, we'll fix it. I try to have a track record of being open and honest when something bad goes wrong, and I think that's part of building trust. A lot of times people just want you to say, hey, I messed up and I'm sorry, we'll fix that. A lady called me the other day and was upset about a visitation issue, and I said, ma'am, I'm on your side with this. And just me saying that, you know, hey, you were done, this wasn't done right, we need to fix this, changed the whole conversation. That it's okay to say you're sorry. It's okay to say, hey, we messed up. We're all human. We don't get it right all the time. And I think when you try to act like you do, makes people not have trust in you. And so I try to teach my kids is that as well. If you messed up, just, hey, I messed up. Hey, I'm sorry. It goes a long way when you say it and mean it.
It was good seeing them and your wife up there on the stage as well yesterday.
It was. You know, they thought enough of me to come, so that might be on occasion. I have to worry about that, but and I'm just kidding. My wife gets mad at me for joking all the time. But yesterday was a joyous occasion, and I'm very honored and humbled to be the sheriff. You know, this is an awesome responsibility. There's a lot of things that come along with it, and when I say it's a burden, I don't mean it's a burden as a bad burden, but it's a burden when something happens to somebody, when something's wrong. I have that burden that I want to fix it. I want to do something about it, and just the people of Calhoun County trusting me with that, knowing that I care about them, is a huge honor, and I'm blessed beyond measure.
And they help us out every week as well by calling in that information.
They do. They help us every week by calling in information and helping our deputies. 8 arrested, you've never let us down. Brings our count up to 4,322 people put in jail, all because somebody was willing to help.
And we'll get started on trying to raise that number even higher in just a minute when we come back on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.
And welcome to this week's edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted. First up in our lineup this week, Justin Buchanan. Mr. Buchanan, last known to be living in Oxford, he's wanted for a probation revocation on receiving stolen property first. And this is Ernest Pierce. Mr. Pierce, last known to be living in Anniston, he's wanted for a failure to appear on possession of marijuana first. And we'd like you to meet Christine Dorrell. Miss Dorrell, last known to be living in Oxford, she's wanted for probation revocation on possession of a controlled substance. And take a look at Christopher Johnson. Mr. Johnson, last known to be living in Ohatchee, he's wanted for failure to pay on distribution of a controlled substance. And this is Stuart Smith. Mr. Smith, last known to be living in Ohatchee, he's wanted for child support non-payment and failure to appear on child support, the face of a deadbeat dad. And last up for this half of the lineup, Jacob Wilson. Mr. Wilson, last known to be living in Weaver, he's wanted for receiving stolen property third. And that's it for the first half of our lineup. Stay tuned for the second half later in the show.
All right, let's do some counting, shall we, Sheriff? You up for some counting?
We're going past 10?
We might do past it. Hopefully we will. Andy Green is joining us here from Jacksonville State University, and today representing the Complete Count Committee of Calhoun County. All right,
That's
you're
correct,
the co-chair, so we got as many C's as we could possibly get here. But what is the Complete Count Committee?
The Complete Count Committee is an initiative, and you will see these happening really across the entire country as we get ready for the 2020 census. The U.S. Census Bureau encourages communities to put together what they call a Complete Count Committee. Really our charge and our mission is to go into all of the area here that we call Calhoun County and encourage, inspire, and educate our citizens through engagement opportunities for them to complete the 2020 census.
This is a very important thing. People sometimes don't realize how the census impacts them on a daily basis. So just one example that comes to mind is looking statewide in Alabama. They're saying very important that we get everybody counted because there's a possibility that Alabama may lose some of our representation in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. One of the congressional seats is at stake, and we know that that's very important for the state of Alabama. If you look at the state of Alabama just over the last few census that have been taken, 2010, 2000, 1990, when we were able to gain that additional congressional seat, that is tremendous for the state. We know that that is potentially coming as a loss, and we do not want that to happen. The census really exists for that House apportionment, for the government to be able to count from the federal government side so that we have equal representation in the House of Representatives. But as you just said, we know that it really trickles down to every single person in our area. One of the things that most people think about when they think of the census is just maybe completing that form. They might not see the after effects of completing the census. And so after the census is taken, a lot of that information, if not every bit of it, is used to impact our everyday lives. The economic development for this area is based on the census numbers. Some of the monies that are given for highway and transportation projects, but we also know goes into some of the social programs from the federal government, Medicaid, Medicare, the state children's health insurance here, the SCHIP, if you've heard of that. So we know that it impacts every area as well as in education. The Title I funds that our local schools receive aren't based on the enrollment of the school, they're based on the census data that is taken every 10 years.
And even when you get down to things like, we get excited when we see they're building a new restaurant in town. Oh, you know, they just recently opened the Moe's not too long ago in Oxford. Well, if it weren't for proper census data, that wouldn't be there. The company is looking at that census data to determine whether or not they can make money here.
You're exactly right, Chris, and we know that there are other factors that they look into, traffic count being one of those. They are looking at many different things, but that census number is really the first that they are seeing and the first they are exposed to. There are large cities all across the country and there are small cities all across the country, and you might think, well, it could work in this town, but an executive making a decision somewhere on the other side of the country, they have no idea what the dynamics are in your city, and they're looking at that census number first.
Sheriff, I imagine this also impacts your ability to do your job and hire employees.
Absolutely. You know, I think people need to understand, like you're saying, the reason why we do it, and those reasons are very important.
This is going to be sometimes a little bit tricky as you're trying to encourage people to participate. Not everybody gets excited when somebody from the government or representing the government in some capacity comes and knocks on their door, do they?
Not at all, and that's certainly one of those unfortunate things that happen. I think back to maybe a different time that we probably all will remember when somebody knocked on the door. You looked forward to opening it and seeing who it was. Come in and maybe have a slice of apple pie or something and just visit. And now when someone knocks at the door, everybody hits the floor and says, "Don't get up, don't answer it," unless it's the sheriff's office, obviously. But
that happens a lot when we go there. You just described when we knock on a door what happens almost every time.
Yeah, and you're maybe just making a welfare visit, just checking on someone. And but this will be an exciting census in 2020, Chris, because this will be the first time that persons can complete the census through mail and online and on the phone. And so no longer does the census worker have to show to your house in order to complete the census. We will be able to, through the local update of addresses, they will be sending the household a card that will have a unique identifier that allows that household to complete the census online. So just as the way of the world has moved to online, and rather than opening our doors to everyone, if you want to, you can complete it online.
Somebody's going to come knock on that door if you don't, though.
That's right. That's right. One of the main focuses for the Complete Count Committee is going into what were called the low response areas. One of the things our focus has been is identifying why some of our census tracts in Calhoun County have had a low response score in 2010. We think we've identified some of those barriers to being able to get every single person counted in the right place on the particular date. And so the Complete Count Committee is made up of persons all across this county in different walks of life and backgrounds. And we're really doing our best to go into those hard to count areas and see, it could be a geographic limitation or it could be a demographic limitation. And so we want to make sure that every person is counted in the right place at the right time.
All right, we need to take a quick break, but this is very important. We'll talk more about this when we come back. We'll also have the second half of this week's lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.
And welcome to the second half of our lineup. First up this half, Shakisha Brim. Miss Brim, last known to be living in Anniston. She's wanted for failure to pay on theft of property third. And we'd like you to meet Shelby Huff. Miss Huff, last known to be living in Alexandria. She's wanted for failure to appear on receiving stolen property ×2 and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. And take a look at Quavion Floyd. Mr. Floyd, last known to be living in Anniston, he's wanted for failure to appear on obstruction of justice by using a false ID. And here is Patrick McMurray. Mr. McMurray, last known to be living in Wellington, he's wanted for a probation violation on possession of a controlled substance. And have a look at Jeffrey Pilkington. Mr. Pilkington, last known to be living in Wellington, he's wanted for violation of a domestic violence protection order, domestic violence third, and failure to appear on domestic violence third ×2, and violation of a domestic violence protection order ×2. And last up in our lineup this week, Eric Smith. Mr. Smith, last known to be living in Jacksonville, he's wanted for failure to appear on attempting to elude in a vehicle entering a road from private property. And that's it for our lineup this week. If you know the whereabouts of these folks, please give us a call at Crime Stoppers. That number, 256-238-1414.
All right, we are back. Andy Green is with the Complete Count Committee in Calhoun County, and we're talking about the census for 2020. You're already hard at work on making sure that we do it right here locally so that we get the proper representation in this census. Now, will that include people at the Calhoun County Jail, for example?
Yeah, it absolutely will, Chris, and that's one of the areas that we have taken guidance from the U.S. Census Bureau. The Atlanta field office has sent representation here. We've been meeting with them and doing what they call, I believe it's called either a group count or a block count. So those persons that are at the facility there, those persons will be counted as a group. So they will not have someone going cell to cell counting each person, but your office will be able to provide those counts. At Jacksonville State University, for example, students who are living in university residence halls, again, that's a group count. So those persons who are maybe in group living, those who are counted in a different way. There's some specifics about that, and if there's persons who have questions, they can reach out to us and ask those.
All right, so tell me about some of the areas that we may see underrepresented for whatever reason.
Well, anytime that you have a transient type population, so for example, Jacksonville State University in northwest Jacksonville, the census tract there, 2101, we know that there are students that are coming and going. And many students maybe think, I don't need to complete the census because someone back home is counting me there. But if that student is living in a university residence hall, or if they're living in an apartment as of April 1, 2020, and they've been in that place for at least 6 months, so the fall semester going in the spring would allow them to be counted there, we want them to be counted in Jacksonville. The census is taken every 10 years. That doesn't mean you have to live in the same place for the next 10 years. Some of the other hard-to-count populations are those that we have in our community that are identified as homeless. They maybe don't have a place that they call home. They're maybe going from place to place at different times, but we want to count them on April the 1st, 2020, where they are on that date, so that the best decisions can be made here at the local level, also at the state level, and again at the federal level.
And for some people, it may be a little bit resistant. They say, the government doesn't care about me, and I don't want them to know all about me. Well, that's kind of a contradiction there, because the government can't take care of you if they don't know about you.
That's exactly right. What we have seen in our experience thus far, some of that resistance, I think could be warranted, but also some of that resistance is coming from populations who are getting the most out of those dollars. We've been fortunate to go into the City Council meeting at Oxford, Anniston, Jacksonville, and Piedmont, speak there with the local leaders, and they understand. And so if the citizens have questions, speak with their local City Council governments and be able to talk to them about the census, knowing that what happens in Washington does trickle to Montgomery, what happens in Montgomery trickles to the local level. But as we can see, the local governments are the ones who are impacting people's day-to-day lives.
Sheriff, is very important. People count.
People count.
Yeah, that's right. That's our slogan for the 2020 Complete Count Committee campaign, is that people count. We know that the census counts for economic decisions, it counts for a lot of things, but in the end, every single person in Calhoun County matters, and they count.
So you're working right now with the committee to get ready for 2020. Average citizen, is there anything that we should be doing at this point?
Absolutely. Talk about the census. In your circles, wherever you are, if you're in a faith-based community, if you're in civic groups, wherever you are with other people in this area, talk about the census and encourage them to complete the census, if for nothing else, for them to be counted, so that maybe they are also talking about it in their circles of influence, and that we do get each person counted.
So just spread the word and get people open to the idea.
That's correct.
All right, very good. Well, Andy, we greatly appreciate you being here on the show this week, and all the work that you and your committee are working hard on.
Yeah, it's a team effort, and certainly co-chair with me is Robert Jackson. Some of you maybe know him from Consolidated Publishing, but we have persons, again, representing all areas in every corner of this county, and we have a lot of volunteers. But if people are interested in volunteering, they can call the Calhoun County Area Visitors and Chamber of Commerce, so they can reach out there and we can put them in touch with everyone for our different committees, touching all the areas of education, health care, and some of the demographic populations that we want to make sure get counted.
Very good. All right, we'll be back in just a few moments. We will have our Crazy Criminal of the Week and also the Crime Stoppers segment of the show here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.
And welcome to the Crime Stoppers portion of our show, where we ask you to help our investigators with the following cases. First up, on December 18th, a local resident reported a scam where the person received a check for $5,000. This person had been corresponding through a job search website. Resident was told to deposit the check into the victim's bank account. The person then sent $3,250 to the scammer through eBay gift cards, and as was requested by the scammer. This transaction was completed, and the bank later learned the check was fraudulent, leaving the resident for a loss of $3,250. Stay alert for all those scams. And sometime between December 18th and December 19th, numerous vehicles were broken into. This happened on McDaniel Street, Wilkerson, Bradford, Snow Circle, Martin Luther King Drive area of Anniston. Stolen were wallets and cell phones and money. Sometime on December 23rd, a burglary was reported at a storage facility on Friendship Road in Oxford. Numerous household items were stolen, including a box full of Blu-ray videos, red and white Silvertone guitar, Desert Rose china. All were stolen from that location. And on December 24th, a car wash on Highway 431 was burglarized. Currency, large red toolbox, and contents, along with a propane heater and 3 vacuum motors, were stolen from the car wash. And sometime between December 19th and December 27th, a storage unit was broken into. Storage unit located on Highway 78 East in Anniston. A Kennedy toolbox, red Craftsman 3-tier toolbox, 3 air conditioner units, 3 bench grinders and miscellaneous motorcycle parts were stolen from that location. And on December 31st, mail and a package were taken from a mailbox on Burgess Drive in Anniston. A Nissan Altima with 2 males and 2 children were seen at the mailbox taking the contents. On January 1st of 2019, a male entered a retail business on Highway 21 in Oxford and stole 3 bottles of liquor. He was seen leaving the business in a light-colored Ford Escape. And that's it for your Crime Stoppers portion of the show. If you have any information on these cases, and we hope you do, please give us a call at Crime Stoppers. That number, 256-238-1414. Remember, we want your information and not your name.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
All right, for our crazy criminal this week, Sheriff, we're going to go to Texas to a Walmart where a lady is no longer welcome at the Walmart. You've heard this.
I have. You know, they say things are bigger in Texas. If you're going to go big or go home, I think she went big and they're sending her home.
Yeah. This lady was at the parking lot, I believe, of the Walmart and riding one of those little electric carts that they have for people that are disabled. And she's out there for about 3 hours on this thing while drinking wine from a Pringles can.
Hey. You know, if you're going to go to jail, going a little drunk takes the edge off. You know, if things are bad, if you've got to your wine glass is a Pringles can. I mean, that's.
How does this go on for more than 3 hours at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Something tells me she didn't start at 6 o'clock in the morning. She might have started the day before, and she just kept going to 6 o'clock in the morning. So.
You may be right about that.
Yeah, you know, at least when she went to jail or whatever, that she might not have a good recollection of what she did. So.
My guess is that somebody in Florida right now is saying, "Here, hold my Pringles can."
Yeah.
All right, that's it for this week. We'll be looking for you again next week, but hopefully not in the lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.